In this world, we are told that nothing lasts forever. And one day, without warning, reality itself began to break. Across the globe, strange cracks tore through the fabric of space. They became a symbol of the end of peace as we knew it. From these rifts came beings known only as evil souls. These spirits possessed the living, twisting them into monstrous demon corpses. The world was plunged into an age of terror, a constant battle for survival. But even in this broken world, small moments of kindness still exist. A young boy shares a quiet moment with a lost dog. Unfortunately, trouble has a way of finding the good ones. The boy senses a sudden, chilling shift in the air. Right before them, a new rift tears open reality itself. His face drains of color as he recognizes the sign of a demon rift. From the crack, a swirling mass of dark energy emerges. An evil soul, hungry for a host, has found its targets. The dog, clearly not a student of world-ending events, just stares. In a flash, the spirit dives, consuming the innocent creature. A blast of hellfire throws the boy back, his mind reeling in shock. The dog he just befriended is twisted into a fiery demon corpse. All that remains of his new friend is a single glowing red eye. The twisted creature lets out a hellish roar, and the boy can only scream for help. But just as it lunges, a stranger dives in to protect him. He tackles the kid to the ground, narrowly avoiding the monster's fiery jaws. The man reassures him, a confident smile on his face despite the danger. He tells the boy to stay back and watch him take care of this thing. A strange green energy surrounds him. Clearly, this isn't his first demonic rodeo. Because humanity didn't just lie down and accept its terrible new fate. When the rifts appeared, mysterious orbs manifested before the chosen ones. These orbs granted one of 5 attributes, creating the world's first demon slayers. But the official story only ever mentioned 5 known slayer attributes. The slayer unleashes a volley of green energy blasts at the beast, but the creature simply splits, revealing a second monstrous head. The slayer's confidence wavers as the boy watches in utter horror. Both heads howl in unison, gathering a terrifying amount of hellfire. It unleashes a torrent of flames, engulfing the entire street. Once again, the slayer shields the boy, barely escaping the inferno. He realizes this fight is far more dangerous than he anticipated. The demon gathers its power for a final, overwhelming blast. A colossal beam of fire slams into the slayer's desperate defense. His energy shield cracks under the pressure. His strength is failing. But just as his shield shatters, a new power intervenes. The boy can only stare, completely stunned by the sudden turn of events. A mysterious figure lands amidst a storm of dark energy. He's enveloped in an aura unlike anything seen before. The Green Slayer is baffled, wondering if this is another Slayer. With cold red eyes, the stranger calmly faces the chaos. Our hero Slayer is officially having a very, very bad day. He summons a blade of pure darkness, an unknown attribute. And from a nearby balcony, another pair of eyes watches the scene unfold. His sword doesn't shine, it's a void that consumes light itself. The Dark Slayer stands unfazed before the towering demon corpse. He is now the sole barrier between the monster and the survivors. The beast lunges with hellish fury, aiming to devour him whole. But his dark blade meets the attack head-on, erupting in a clash of power. His glowing red eyes betray an intense, focused rage. In a single devastating strike, the monster is utterly annihilated. All that remains of the demon are 2 patches of fading darkness. The boy's grief pours out, but the Dark Slayer seems completely unmoved. For a moment, the crimson glow fades from his eyes. He makes a silent vow to never forgive those who destroy without cause. The Dark Slayer glances up, sensing the eyes that have been watching him. On the rooftop, the observer smirks, clearly entertained by the display of power. The Dark Slayer turns to the others, his question hinting at a deeper meaning. And then, his mind flashes back 6 years to a much darker time. A time when the only light in his world was his beloved older brother. But his childhood was far from happy, filled with chores instead of affection. Even the simplest tasks were a source of constant fear and failure. We meet a younger Arata Tuma, terrified of the punishment he knows is coming. His foster mother's voice echoes in his mind, a constant reminder of his inadequacy. She threatens to discard him, revealing the cold, transactional nature of his home. Young Arata can only apologize, his voice trembling with fear. His only value in this house is to perform chores for his guardians. While he works, his foster parents share a moment, forgetting he even exists. He compares himself to his perfect older brother, feeling utterly worthless. The foster mother's words echo in his mind, telling him he doesn't belong. He's trapped in a spiral of self-loathing, a burden to everyone around him. But a familiar voice cuts through the darkness, a welcome interruption. His older brother, Ryo Tuma, returns with a bright, reassuring smile. Ryo immediately offers to help with the chore Arata was dreading. For the first time all day, a genuine smile touches Arata's face. His brother was his only confidant, a constant source of support. He sits glued to the television, watching a report on demon slayers. On screen, a rising star named Kisaragi defeats a silver-rank demon corpse. Arata is completely captivated, inspired by these heroes who protect the world. But his brief moment of inspiration is shattered by his foster mother's voice. She kicks him viciously, screaming at him for slacking on his chores. But for the first time, Arata glares back with a hint of defiance. His silent rebellion only fuels her rage into a terrifying fury. She lunges forward, demanding he stop looking at her with those eyes. The world fades as the boy can only stare in stunned silence. But just as she's about to strike, Ryo intervenes, shielding his younger brother. Ryo glares at her, his expression filled with a cold, protective fury. He tells Arata it's time to leave, leading him away from the toxic household. Outside, the weight of the moment settles on Arata's bruised face. In Arata's eyes, his big brother was a true hero, his only protector. But a painful realization dawns on him. He's a burden to his hero. Later, sitting on the stairs, Arata gathers the courage to speak his mind. He declares his dream, to become a demon slayer no matter how impossible it seems. It's a vow to escape their prison and build a new life with his brother. Ryo listens, a proud smile forming as Arata promises to protect him in return. Ryo's faith in his little brother is absolute and unwavering. He believes Arata's kindness and inner strength will be his greatest assets. Without wasting a moment, Ryo announces their training starts now. Arata's earnest vow is met with his brother's fond laughter. From that day forward, Arata trained relentlessly under his brother's watch. With his brother cheering him on, the impossible dream felt within reach. For the first time, Arata's life was filled with purpose and hope. But this peaceful, fulfilling time was destined to be short-lived. Then, on one unforgettable day, a strange light fills their small room. Reflected in his eyes is a golden orb, the sign of a chosen one. Arata looks up from his studies, calling out to his ever-present brother. Suddenly, the room is filled with a brilliant light as an orb appears before them. The impossible dream is now reflected in Arata's wide, disbelieving eyes. Ryo pulls him into a tearful hug, overjoyed that his brother's efforts were recognized. Arata can only cry in relief, thanking the one person who always believed in him. Ryo beams with pride, realizing it's a rare, top-rank gold orb. He identifies it as a water attribute orb, one of the 5 fabled powers. Arata kneels, reaching out to accept the destiny he has fought so hard for. His fingers are just inches away from the source of all his future hopes. But in a shocking betrayal, Ryo's hand snatches the orb right before his eyes. The celebration is cut short by the arrival of their foster father. He sneers that such a powerful orb is wasted on a kid like Arata. Ryo immediately tries to defend his brother, but it's already too late. His protest is answered with a brutal kick that sends him to the floor. The man screams that what belongs to Arata is his by right. Ryo is thrown against the wall as Arata watches in helpless terror. He gloats about selling the orb, promising them a nice meal for once. A true family man. All Arata can do is cry, his dream shattered before his very eyes. He learns a bitter lesson about a world that steals from the powerless. The memory fades, shifting to a massive corporate building in the present. The buyer makes a condescending offer, a price for Arata's stolen future. Without a hint of shame, the foster father eagerly accepts the deal. And just like that, Arata's destiny is sold for a handful of cash. The buyer's smirk reveals the cold, transactional nature of this new world. Years later, the world fawns over a new hero, Takato Goto. He's a business mogul and a powerful slayer, a true celebrity. The media paints him as the man who will save the world. Watching the report, even Arata seems impressed by the man's reputation. His friend agrees, marveling at the slayer's incredible success story. Meanwhile, a woman asks Takato about the very orb that started his journey. Takato proudly recounts the moment he received his orb, a brilliant sphere of water energy. He recalls the overwhelming feeling of destiny, believing he was truly chosen for greatness. But back in the present, Arata's friend connects the dots with furious realization. The broadcast explains that only one gold orb exists for each attribute in the entire country. This means Takato Goto is a fraud, a liar who bought his power with dirty money. His friend can't contain his rage, thinking of what could have been if Arata had kept it. Arata wonders if he'd be a slayer now, but quickly dismisses the thought as a hopeless dream. His friend glances over, seeing the quiet pain on Arata's face. A new resolve hardens his features. He declares they should take back what was stolen. He stands up, convinced it's not too late to expose the truth and reclaim Arata's destiny. And so they head straight to the Lion's Den, the corporate tower of Takato Goto. Inside his lavish office, an assistant announces he has unexpected visitors. Takato is clearly annoyed by the interruption, muttering that he's busy. But he condescendingly agrees, the very picture of a self-important celebrity slayer. Arata and his friend step into the room, ready for a confrontation. Takato size them up with a cold, dismissive glare. It's revealed the friend used his father's name to get them inside. He introduces himself as Ryo Tuma, confirming he is Arata's older brother. Ryo demands the return of the orb, but Takato plays dumb with a smug smile. Ryo isn't having it, slamming the desk and calling out the hero's fraudulent origin story. Takato feigns understanding, condescendingly asking if they're just here for money. But Ryo's demand is simple. Give back the orb that rightfully belongs to Arata. The celebrity slayer just listens, a picture of unearned arrogance. With a sly grin, he says he has something he wants to show them first. He calmly leads them away from the office, ignoring Ryo's impatient demands. He guides them to a dark room, a strange purple light seeping from within. His smile never falters, but a sense of dread begins to creep over the brothers. Their confusion turns to pure shock as they see what's inside the room. A massive demon rift tears through the floor, pulsing with dark energy. Ryo can only stare in horror, realizing they've walked straight into a trap. Takato's smug voice confirms their worst fears. This was his plan all along. He calmly enters a code, sealing the door and their fate with it. He waves goodbye, callously telling them to disappear like the poor trash he sees them as. Ryo pounds on the locked door, screaming at the coward who trapped them. But Arata knows their real problem isn't the door, but the rift behind them. He realizes an evil soul is about to emerge, and he's the closest target. Just as he fears, a mass of dark energy shoots out from the rift. The evil soul locks onto him, its hunger palpable in the air. But his brother, his hero, dives in to shield him from the attack. Arata hits the floor, watching in horror as the evil soul strikes his brother instead. Arata can only call out his brother's name, his voice filled with disbelief. The horrific scene is reflected in his wide, terrified eyes. The evil soul consumes Ryo, twisting him in a vortex of dark energy. But even as he's being possessed, Ryo's only concern is for his little brother. Arata's world shatters, watching his only protector sacrifice himself. His mind flashes back to the promise he made all those years ago. A vow to become strong enough to protect the one who always protected him. Even as the darkness takes him, Ryo's thoughts are only of Arata. With his last shred of humanity, he offers words of encouragement, because the timing is just perfect. But all Arata can do is scream, his heart breaking into a million pieces. Arata's denial shatters into a desperate, heartbroken scream for his brother. Before him, Ryo is reborn as a hulking demon corpse, wreathed in dark power. His mind struggles to comprehend this ultimate, cruel twist of fate. He collapses, drowning in a sea of guilt, blaming his own dreams for this nightmare. But through the despair, a new clarity emerges, fueled by pure, unadulterated rage. And just then, a new orb of power materializes right in front of him. It's a sphere of pure darkness, an attribute completely unknown to the world. Reflected in his tear-filled eyes is a second chance he never thought he'd get. He reaches out, determined to seize the destiny that was stolen from him years ago. As his hand closes around it, an immense chaotic power surges through his body. The world distorts as the dark orb's power floods Arata's senses. The raw power is agonizing, rewriting his very being with every scream. All his pain, grief, and rage are unleashed in a single primal scream. A system window pops up, calling this a blessing from the demon realm. You know, for kids. Meanwhile, Takato walks away, confident he's just tied up some loose ends. He gloats that the brothers will become demon corpses, mere fuel for his own power. In his mind, this is a fitting end for the poor who dare to challenge their betters. He strolls away laughing, the very picture of a well-adjusted hero. But back in the sealed room, Arata's transformation is far from over. The pain finally fades, leaving behind a chillingly calm and determined gaze. He questions the surge of power, wondering if this is truly his new reality. But the monster that was once his brother gives him no time to process. It smashes the ground where he stood, but Arata is no longer there. He realizes his body moved on its own, feeling lighter and faster than ever before. The dark power has fundamentally changed him, granting him enhanced reflexes. And as if on cue, a holographic interface appears right before his eyes. It's a full status window, complete with levels, skills, and an HP gauge. He's finally become a slayer. The universe has a terrible sense of timing, but his possessed brother charges again, a mindless beast driven by rage. Arata desperately pleads with him, begging Ryo to fight the demonic influence. But Arata's despair is replaced by a fierce, unwavering resolve to save his brother. He calls out his brother's name, facing the towering demon corpse head-on. The beast responds with a guttural snarl, any trace of Ryo seemingly gone. It gathers a massive amount of dark energy, preparing to obliterate him. But instead of attacking Arata, it smashes through the wall behind him. Arata is left standing in shock as the monster escapes into the city. He realizes the creature held back, choosing to flee instead of kill him. A sliver of hope appears. Maybe his brother is still fighting from within. But that hope is quickly replaced by a terrifying realization. If Ryo is found in the city, other slayers will hunt him down. He has to find him first, but the rift is still active behind him. But the rift isn't done yet, spitting out another evil soul in the form of a rat. His face contorts in panic. He has no time for another fight. The soul finds a host, twisting into a massive wolf-snake hybrid. Of course, at a time like this, the beast swipes with blinding speed, forcing Arata into a desperate dive. He barely clears the impact zone as the floor shatters beneath the monster's claw. He knows every second he spends here is a second Ryo gets further away. He needs to end this fight quickly, but the creature is a formidable foe. The demon lunges again, and this time Arata is caught in the blast. He's stunned by its power. One hit was enough to send him flying. But the pain sharpens his focus, reminding him of what's truly at stake. And with the power comes knowledge, a list of new skills appearing in his mind. He pushes back, realizing he's no longer just a victim. He's a slayer now. With his eyes glowing red, he taps into the dark energy flowing through him. He unleashes a new skill, Soot Flash Release, blanketing the area in darkness. The entire room is filled with a thick black powder, blinding his opponent. He examines the strange particles, realizing this is the soot from his status screen. But through the haze, a single red eye glares, its rage completely undiminished. The beast bursts from the cloud, its attack just as ferocious as before. Arata's confidence shatters. His first combat strategy was a total bust. He's caught completely off guard, crushed beneath the monster's overwhelming power. Pinned down, Arata can only curse his own weakness. The massive beast towers over him, a symbol of his impending failure. He questions if this is it, if his dream ends before it even begins. The creature lunges again, ready to deliver the final fatal blow. But in that split second, his fear is replaced by a cold, quiet focus. He rises to his feet, facing the demon with an unnerving calm. A dark, oppressive energy begins to pour from his body. His eyes ignite with a crimson glow, a sign that something has awakened. In a flash, the monster is sent reeling, struck by an invisible force. The beast is thrown across the room, its roar of triumph turning into a shriek of pain. Arata's world goes quiet, the chaos of the fight fading for a moment. He opens his eyes, the crimson glow gone, replaced by pure confusion. Before him, the monster is pinned by dozens of dark weapons, utterly defeated. He looks at his own hands, wondering what in the world just happened. A system notification pops up, announcing he's jumped from level 1 to level 3. He realizes defeating the beast gave him a massive power boost. You know, the classic RPG solution to trauma. But he quickly shakes off the surprise, his priorities snapping back into focus. His new stats don't matter. There's only one thing he needs to do right now. He rushes outside, his mind racing to find his brother before it's too late. And he hasn't forgotten the man who started it all, the so-called hero Takato Goto. Arata's grief hardens into a cold, unbreakable vow of revenge. But the weight of it all finally crushes him, and he collapses on the street. Back at the tower, Takato Goto decides it's time to clean up his mess. He plans to hunt the new demon corpses, for the good publicity. But as he leaves, he's met by a very unexpected and unimpressed visitor. The newcomer finds the room in ruins, the air thick with dark energy. He stares through the massive hole in the wall, his confusion turning to dread. He knows the demon here should have been weak, far too weak to cause this damage. A horrifying possibility dawns on him as he connects the dots. His mind flashes to memories of the two brothers he was supposed to protect. Even in his demonic form, Ryo's voice echoes in his mind, a final message of encouragement. The memory jolts him awake with a desperate, heartbroken scream for his brother. But he's not on the street anymore. He's in a quiet, sunlit hospital room. He tries to piece it together, remembering the confrontation and the brutal fight that followed. The horrifying image of his brother's transformation flashes through his mind. Panic sets in as he realizes Ryo is out there, a target for every slayer in the city. But his escape is cut short by a very loud, very insistent voice. A nurse rushes in, demanding he stay put before he hurts himself further. She explains that he was found collapsed on the side of the road. A totally normal Tuesday. Looking at his injuries, she correctly guesses he had a run-in with a demon corpse. Arata slowly processes the nurse's words, the memory of his collapse returning. He looks around the unfamiliar room, trying to make sense of his surroundings. The nurse explains he's in a special medical facility just for demon slayers. He wonders who found him, but a more urgent question burns in his mind. She notes his lack of a badge and advises the rookie to join a guild for support. But Arata ignores her, his mind already set on leaving. The nurse is not having it, demanding he stay put and recover. She asks him nicely not to run away, a request he seems poised to completely ignore. But rest is a luxury he can't afford. His brother is still out there. A nearby news report confirms his worst fears. The monster that was once his brother is still at large. Arata's blood runs cold as he realizes the news has already spread. He overhears two men discussing the guild's massive search for the monster. He now knows for sure the guilds are hunting his brother down. His resolve hardens. He has to find Ryo first and protect him. Just then, the nurse returns, asking about some reward money he applied for. But her cheerful demeanor fades as she realizes something is amiss. She turns to find the room completely empty, her patient long gone. Arata is already on the streets, racing against the clock. Hospital gowns are surprisingly aerodynamic, it seems. The men's words echo in his mind, a constant, panicked reminder. He considers the terrifying possibility that Ryo might be trapped in a rift. His expression hardens with a grim new purpose. He'll search every rift if he has to. Just then, a citywide alert blares, announcing a new demon rift has opened. The target area is nearby, and an evacuation order is already in effect. He realizes the timing is too perfect to be a coincidence. With a new lead, he decides to investigate the disturbance himself. He arrives to find a pulsating rift identified as a bronze rank threat. The Slayer Association has already erected a barrier, but the area is deserted. He steels himself, hoping Ryo is inside but dreading his first real dungeon crawl. Shaking off his fear, he charges headfirst into the swirling vortex of dark energy. A system window confirms his entry, officially beginning his first rift conquest. The world dissolves into a blur of light and energy as he's pulled through. He emerges on the other side, the transition jarring his senses. His eyes widen as he takes in the alien landscape before him. He's in a desolate wasteland, a pocket dimension of rock and dust. But he's not here for sightseeing, he's here to find his brother. Suddenly, another system window materializes out of thin air. It's a mission alert. Defeat the boss and clear the rift. Welcome to the tutorial level. He realizes this means fighting his way through lesser demons first, and for a moment, a wave of doubt washes over the rookie slayer. But he pushes it aside, ready to face whatever this world throws at him. The ground cracks as the rift's first inhabitant makes its presence known. A system window identifies it as a Garm, a level 3 demonic wolf. He remembers defeating a monster yesterday, but this time he'll do it consciously. With renewed resolve, he stands his ground, ready to clear a path to his goal. He quickly cycles through his new abilities, searching for the right tool for the job. Dark energy gathers in his hand as he prepares to unleash his power. He summons a new weapon, a blade of pure darkness called the Soot Shadow Blade. He's relieved to see the skill manifest, a solid weapon now in his grasp. But the beast isn't waiting for an invitation, lunging forward with a furious roar. Without hesitation, he counters the attack, jamming the shadow blade into its gaping maw. The beast's claws dig in, but Arata pushes back with a furious grunt. He holds his ground, a lone figure against a monstrous tide of fury. He remembers his training, the years spent preparing for this very moment with Ryo. Digging his heels in, he refuses to be pushed back another inch. All his pain and resolve are channeled into a single desperate counterattack. With a final push, his shadow blade tears straight through the demonic wolf. The creature dissolves into nothing, leaving Arata standing victorious. The system rewards his victory, boosting him from level 3 to level 5. He lets out a sigh of relief, his first conscious kill finally behind him. But his moment of calm is shattered by a sudden, chilling realization, because it turns out the first wolf brought a few of its friends. His face drains of color, shocked by the sheer number of enemies. He questions if he's strong enough to fight through them all to find the boss. But with his brother's life on the line, retreat isn't an option. He recalls the mysterious power that saved him back in the tower. The demonic pack doesn't give him time to think, lunging in for the kill. He tries to summon that same power, but has no idea how to activate it. One of the beasts sinks its teeth into his arm, drawing first blood. He knows he's being overwhelmed. His stamina won't last long at this rate. But just as he's about to be overrun, a blast of fire erupts from the side. The entire wolf pack is instantly incinerated in a massive, roaring fireball. A new voice praises Arata's skill, completely misreading the situation. Arata looks up, completely bewildered by the sudden arrival of his rescuer. He's stunned by the sheer power of the technique that just saved his life. The newcomer asks if Arata is the unidentified slayer the association is looking for. But it's not just one slayer. An entire high-ranking party has just entered the rift. He's introduced as Leo Kuji, a gold-rank fire slayer from the Shin Guild. His companions are silver slayers, Shu Makishima and Hayato Akagi. Looks like the A-team has arrived. Leo questions why a lone, unregistered slayer is in a restricted area. Because this isn't just any gold slayer, he's one of the legendary 5 emperors. The remaining wolves close in, their claws digging into the dusty ground. But the elite slayers stand completely unfazed by the horde of demonic beasts. The entire pack prepares to charge, a sea of red eyes and bared fangs. Leo seems more annoyed by the interruption than the actual threat. Priorities. With a casual flick of his wrist, he prepares to end this little distraction. He unleashes a devastating attack, a pillar of divine fire called Ragnarok. The entire area is engulfed in flames, leaving nothing but scorched earth behind. Arata can only stare, witnessing the overwhelming power of a gold-rank slayer. His companion notes that this many demons in a bronze-rank rift is highly unusual. But Leo's attention turns back to Arata, questioning the nature of his strange, dark power. Arata looks at his hand, still processing that these strange new skills are truly his. But Leo's mind races, realizing this power feels nothing like the 5 known attributes. He confronts Arata, noting his unregistered status and the unprecedented nature of his power. The gold-rank slayer's tone shifts, demanding to know Arata's true purpose in this rift. Arata knows he's being interrogated. Telling the truth about Rio would be a death sentence. He tries to play it cool, thanking the slayer and attempting a very swift exit. But Leo isn't finished, explaining that orbs manifest from a person's deepest desires. He continues his lecture, stating that these powers almost always reflect a person's inner self. But his eyes narrow, fixated on the dark, unknown energy radiating from the boy. Arata senses the suspicion, realizing this high ranker isn't going to let him go so easily. Leo realizes he's found the very slayer the association has been looking for. He labels Arata an irregular, a dangerous anomaly in their world. Arata's guard is up, the weight of the Gold Slayer's gaze pressing down on him. He questions the term, completely unaware of the danger he's in. But he has no time for this, trying to excuse himself to continue his search. Leo reveals there's a capture directive out for the mysterious new slayer. With a cold apology, the Gold Slayer lunges, ready to take him in by force. The sudden betrayal is reflected in Arata's wide, disbelieving eyes. A fist wreathed in flames slams into him with devastating force. He's sent reeling, completely blindsided by the hero's very aggressive HR policy. But his dark power reacts on its own, forming a shield of soot that meets the flames. Leo stares in shock, trying to identify the strange defensive skill that just blocked him. The force of the blow still sends Arata skidding across the wasteland, but he's alive. Mildly impressed, Leo cracks a smile and tells his 2 companions to handle the kid. His teammates look terrified, worried they'll get caught in the crossfire if their boss gets serious. But Leo's eyes glow with a sadistic glee. He's clearly enjoying this far too much. He leaps into the air, unleashing a devastating firestorm down on Arata. Arata scrambles for cover, barely dodging the fireballs raining from the sky. The Gold Slayer taunts him from above, telling him to surrender or be turned to ash. Pinned down, Arata realizes he might not even survive this fight, let alone find his brother. Leo screams that hiding is useless, unleashing another relentless wave of fire. The entire wasteland is engulfed in flames as Arata scrambles for his life. He hits the dirt, the sheer force of the attack overwhelming him completely. The Gold Slayer mocks him, saying he can't win by just running away. With a sadistic grin, Leo promises to turn him into nothing but burnt ash. Arata knows he's right. He desperately scrolls through his skills for an answer. And then his eyes lock onto a skill that just might give him a fighting chance. The Gold Slayer pauses, sensing a sudden shift in the boy's demeanor. Arata rises to his feet, no longer running, no longer hiding. With a new resolve, he prepares to show this hero what his dark power can really do. Leo smirks, amused that this rookie actually thinks he stands a chance. He dismisses the challenge as pointless, rocketing forward in a blaze of glory. But Arata stands firm, facing down the twin fireballs hurtling his way. He unleashes his soot flash release, a wave of darkness meeting the inferno. The two powers collide, fire and ash warring for dominance in a chaotic blast. When the smoke clears, Leo is still standing there with that same arrogant grin. Arata explains the simple logic. You can't burn something that's already ash. Leo seems impressed, admitting Arata is more than just a common weakling. High praise from a guy who just tried to incinerate him. But the time for games is over as he gathers a terrifying amount of power in his fist. He gives Arata one last chance to surrender before he ends this fight for good. But Arata refuses to surrender, his grip tightening on his dark blade. He screams that he can't be stopped here. His brother is still out there. The word brother catches Leo completely off guard, his attack faltering. Seizing the momentary opening, Arata charges forward with everything he has. His fist, wreathed in darkness, meets the Gold Slayer's in a stunning clash. Leo demands to know what happened to his brother, his suspicion growing. But the raw power difference is clear as Arata is thrown back from the impact. He knows he's outmatched, the pressure of the fight weighing heavily on him. Leo watches him, a strange look on his face as Arata insists he has to leave. Then, the Gold Slayer offers a surprising path forward. Clear the rift and get stronger. Standard career advice. Leo tells him that as he is now, he'll just be turned into burnt ash. But instead of finishing the fight, he lets Arata go with a simple word of thanks. The Gold Slayer offers some parting advice. Train hard and with passion. Just then, his companions return, reporting that the area is clear of demons. They look around, wondering where the mysterious Dark Slayer disappeared to. But Leo just smiles, impressed by the fire he saw in the kid's eyes. His teammates are completely baffled by their leader's unusually good mood. With the irregular gone, they turn their attention back to the rift's true boss. The scene shifts to a new location, the headquarters of the Deep Blue Guild. But just as one crisis ends, a new demon rift alert blares through the city. A woman at the Deep Blue Guild headquarters is startled by a sudden alert. The report confirms a new demon rift has just opened in the Shigeno district. Its location flashes on screen, a red cross marking the danger zone. A superior immediately asks if a slayer named Icha can handle the situation. Ichika Aoi, a silver slayer, accepts the mission without a moment's hesitation. Meanwhile, Arata wanders the city streets as the sun begins to set. He's lost in the crowd, the weight of his failure pressing down on him. He's been searching for any sign of a rift, but the city remains quiet. He realizes the rift closed because Leo's party defeated the boss, ending his search for Rio. On a nearby screen, the faces of top slayers offer hollow reassurance. The very people who would kill his brother on sight. He knows he can't trust the guilds. With a capture order out, he's completely on his own. But just then, a familiar citywide alert blares, and his eyes widen with purpose. The announcement pinpoints the location, a new rift in the Shigeno district. Phones light up with emergency warnings, urging civilians to evacuate the area immediately. He realizes the new rift is close, a potential lead in his desperate search. He knows he has to get there before the other slayers arrive and seal it off. Without a second thought, he sprints against the tide of the panicked crowd. He arrives to find the source of the chaos, a bronze-rank demon rift. The area isn't sealed yet, and he prays his brother is somewhere inside. But just as he approaches, a sharp voice calls out, declaring the rift off-limits. Arata turns, his path to the rift now blocked by two strangers. They're bronze slayers from the Deep Blue Guild, and they're sizing him up. But their initial curiosity quickly turns to condescending dismissal. The one in the cap gets in his face, mocking him for not having a guild badge. They see him as a bottom-tier slayer, a failure in the grand scheme of things. Because a fancy pin is the true measure of a man. Arata can only grit his teeth, wondering what their problem is. They explain their orders, guard the rift until a designated slayer arrives to clear it. But Arata's panic grows. He doesn't have time to wait for some other hero. The two goons couldn't care less, more interested in their payday than his desperation. The other slayer summons a crystal weapon, a clear threat to back off. The other slayer unleashes his attack, an icicle needle aimed right at Arata. But Arata moves with his newfound speed, shattering the ice with a swift kick. He grits his teeth in frustration. He doesn't have time for this pointless fight. His patience finally snaps, realizing words won't get him past these two. He decides to end this quickly, lunging forward to take them both down. But the slayer in the cap just smirks, as if Arata has walked right into his trap. Suddenly, the ground beneath Arata liquefies, a mud trap swallowing his legs. He struggles to break free, but the swampy earth holds him completely fast. The goon mocks him, warning that his bottomless swamp could be a slow, muddy grave. Standard guild recruitment tactics. They sneer at the freelance slayer, enjoying the sight of his helplessness. But their little power trip is cut short by a sharp, commanding voice. The goons freeze, recognizing the newcomer as the Silver Slayer, Ichika Aoi. She sees Arata trapped in the mud and immediately summons her water magic to help. With a wave of her hand, a torrent of water washes away the swampy trap. Arata is finally free, coughing on the ground as the last of the mud dissolves. Ichika helps him up, demanding to know why slayers are fighting each other. Arata explains they were blocking his path, and the goons try to justify their actions. But they quickly dismiss her, sneering that she's just a support-class slayer. The crystal user decides to attack, vowing to stop them from entering the rift. Ichika is shocked by the sudden assault, forced to defend herself on the spot. But the so-called support slayer unleashes a massive vortex of water magic. The attack ends and she sighs in exhaustion, admitting she hates to fight. She turns to Arata, offering him a deal. She'll provide support if he'll be her front line. Arata is taken aback, having never fought in a team before, but he quickly agrees. With a determined cry, Ichika unleashes a powerful speed-enhancing charm. A blue aura envelops Arata, and he feels a surge of unfamiliar power. She tells him to end the fight quickly while she keeps him buffed. Standard MMO party tactics. With a new sense of purpose, Arata rockets forward, ready to test his new speed. The two goons can only watch in shock, realizing they severely underestimated the support slayer. He summons his soot shadow blade, a blur of dark energy closing in on his target. In a flash, the fight is over, the two bullies left unconscious on the pavement. He marvels at the sudden boost in speed, realizing it's the effect of Ichika's support magic. A quick check of his status window confirms it. His agility has skyrocketed. Ichika asks if he seriously injured them, but Arata clarifies he just knocked them out. She then notices their badges, sighing in embarrassment that they're from her own guild. HR is going to have a field day. The realization hits Arata. This is the same guild as the man who ruined his life, Takato Goto. She thanks him for his help, and he awkwardly accepts, the tension finally broken. She asks for his name, and he introduces himself as Arata. Ichika returns the introduction with a smile, impressed by his fighting prowess. But her next question catches him completely off guard. What guild is he from? Arata is caught off guard, unable to answer the simple question. Meanwhile, the two defeated slayers flee, vowing to report this to Takato Goto. The name sends a jolt through Arata, and even Ichika seems disgusted by the connection. The memory of Takato's smug face fuels Arata's burning, silent rage. But he pushes the anger aside, his focus returning to the immediate threat. Ichika points to the rift, reminding him they need to clear it quickly. She explains she has permission from Leo to team up with him for this mission. Arata is completely taken aback by the offer to work together. She explains that with rifts becoming more dangerous, a support slayer needs a front line. For her own safety. He remembers the incredible speed boost, his stats confirming the power of her support magic. Arata is still reeling from the power boost, stammering out his thanks. Ichika officially extends the invitation, asking him to join her in the rift. She knows teaming up with a Silver Slayer is risky for him, but it's the perfect cover story. Arata nervously agrees, not really seeing any other choice. With his consent secured, Ichika is practically beaming with excitement. She tells him to keep up, her friendly smile hiding a hint of authority. He promises to do his best, the sweat on his brow betraying his anxiety. And so, the unlikely duo stands before the swirling vortex, ready to face the unknown. A system window confirms their entry, officially beginning the conquest of the Kasendo Rift. No pressure. They step inside, their boots touching down in a strange new world. Arata takes in his surroundings, his first steps into a new alien world. They've entered a dark, cavernous dimension, filled with dripping water and eerie webs. The duo ventures deeper into the cave, leaving the light of their world behind. Ichika reminds him that anything can happen in these dimensions, urging caution. As they walk, she notes the unsettling quiet. There are no demons in sight. Arata's hope sinks slightly. He knew finding Rio wouldn't be this easy. But he remembers Leo's advice, get stronger or die. This is his chance to level up. Just then, the sound of heavy, clawed footsteps echoes from the darkness ahead. Both slayers snap to attention, their brief moment of calm completely shattered. A level 5 goblin emerges from the shadows, ready for the classic tutorial boss fight. Arata recognizes the creature, dismissing it as a low-level goblin he can handle. He summons his Soot Shadow Blade, leaping forward to end the fight quickly. The monster falls easily, and Arata stands victorious, confident in his newfound power. But his victory is cut short by the sound of more footsteps echoing in the dark. He turns to find an entire horde of goblins emerging from the cavern walls. His confidence evaporates, the sheer number of enemies a daunting sight. Classic RPG mob spawn. But his support has his back, as Ichika unleashes a powerful enhancement charm. A system window confirms the buff, his attack power skyrocketing to new heights. With an encouraging smile, she tells him to go show them what he's got. Reinvigorated, Arata charges into the horde, his blade a blur of dark energy. Ichika praises his work, confident that with her support this rift will be a cakewalk. He's still in awe of her buff skills, feeling the power coursing through him. She proudly declares herself the guild's key support, just as a new threat emerges. But his eyes widen in alarm, sensing a danger he hadn't anticipated. He screams a warning as a massive goblin ambushes Ichika from behind. But the so-called support slayer calmly erects a powerful water shield around herself. Her expression is one of pure focus, a master of her element. She then unleashes a devastating blast of water, proving she's more than just a healer. Arata is completely stunned. This support slayer can clearly handle herself in a fight. She turns back to him with a smirk, urging him to keep moving. He realizes he needs to get as strong as her, and fast. He wants to level up, not just for himself, but to protect others like she does. Ichika seems to understand his resolve, offering a knowing smile. Her solution is simple. If he wants to get stronger, he'll have to fight. A lot. Arata realizes this must be the abnormal situation he heard about, as Ichika's calm demeanor feels surprisingly strict. He's enveloped in another blue aura, her support magic flowing into him. She encourages him to take on the entire horde, a trial by fire. With her support, he knows he has no choice but to push forward. He dives into the fray, a whirlwind of dark energy, and the level-up notifications start flooding his screen. The classic grinding montage. As he carves through the horde, Ichika watches with an impressed smirk, acknowledging his progress. The system confirms his progress, jumping him from level 6 all the way to 10. And with the level up comes a brand new skill, Soot Burst Bombardment. Arata can only stare in disbelief at his rapid, almost terrifying growth. But the dungeon isn't done with them yet, as even more goblins swarm in. Ichika realizes they're surrounded, their numbers now doubled. She asks Arata if he has any long-range attacks. For crowd control. He remembers the new skill, a potential answer to their problem. He knows he has to master his abilities, just like his new partner. With his eyes glowing red, he gathers a sphere of pure, dark energy. He unleashes his new power, a devastating bombardment of soot and shadow. The dark energy slams into the goblins, tearing through their ranks with brutal force. His new skill blankets the entire cavern in a storm of soot and shadow. When the darkness finally fades, they're the only ones left standing. Ichika praises his performance, and Arata breathes a quiet sigh of relief. With the path now cleared, they press on toward the heart of the rift, and the system rewards his efforts, jumping him 2 more levels. For a job well done. They peer into the darkness ahead, the air growing heavy and cold. Ichika senses it first, the overwhelming presence of the rift's boss. Arata steels himself, knowing he can't afford to be afraid now. But as they enter the chamber, they both freeze in sudden alarm. Because waiting for them in the final chamber is the rift's boss, a massive, armored ogre. The system confirms it's a level 15 ogre, its red eyes glowing with pure malice. Arata feels a wave of intimidation, but quickly steels his resolve for the fight ahead. The beast lets out a guttural roar, a language of pure demonic rage he can't understand. But before they can attack, a brilliant flash of golden light appears from the cavern ceiling. A third party has entered the rift, unleashing a devastating lightning attack without warning. Ichika immediately steps in front of Arata, telling him she'll handle the ambush. She summons a massive water shield, a last line of defense against the golden storm. The force of the attack is immense, and Ichika strains to hold the barrier together. But her shield holds firm, protecting the duo from the unexpected and powerful assault. Ichika questions the power level, realizing this lightning attack is far too strong for a bronze rank rift. The rift's boss is completely pinned down, helpless against the relentless storm of golden energy. Ichika knows they can't get close and tells Arata she'll hold the line while he finds an opening. Her water shield erupts, meeting the lightning in a chaotic explosion of elemental power. Arata hesitates, but she grits her teeth and screams for him to go, insisting she can handle it. He's done being protected. He knows it's his turn to step up and fight. With a final, determined shout, Arata sprints forward, leaving Ichika to fend off the ambush. He leaps into the fray, soaring above the lightning to strike the defenseless ogre. His eyes lock onto his target, seeing the perfect window to end this. He unleashes his soot-burst bombardment, a vortex of dark power aimed right at the boss. But the mysterious ambusher watches with a grin, her plan to disarm the boss working perfectly. The ogre's massive weapon is blasted from its grip, clattering uselessly to the floor. But the disarmed beast isn't helpless, lunging at Arata with a new, desperate fury. Arata realizes his mistake too late. He's trapped in midair with no way to escape. A beam of pure energy erupts from the ogre, blasting him out of the sky. The attack tears through him, a brutal reminder that this is no tutorial level. He hits the ground, defeated, as Ichika screams his name in a panic. She immediately throws up a defensive barrier, buying them a precious few seconds. Rushing to his side, she places her hands over his wound, promising to heal him. She unleashes a powerful healing spell, a torrent of blue energy flooding into Arata's body. The water magic knits his wound closed, a soothing light in the chaos. He grits his teeth, the pain a sharp reminder of his near-fatal mistake. She offers a quick patch-up, asking if he's still able to fight. But the ogre gives them no time to recover, charging in for the kill. They're both stunned by its speed. The massive beast is a blur of motion. It winds back its fist, gathering a terrifying amount of raw power. The blow connects with her water shield in a deafening explosion of force. The beast hammers away relentlessly, threatening to shatter their only defense. Ichika knows they can't win a war of attrition. They need a single, decisive blow. And in that moment, Arata spots it, a small gap in the monster's armor. She asks if he can hit the weak point, and Arata confirms with unwavering resolve. The plan is set in motion. She holds the line while he flanks the beast. The ogre's rage is focused entirely on her shield, blind to the real threat. It smashes the ground where Arata was, but our boy is already in position. The massive fist descends, a final crushing blow aimed right at him. But he meets the attack head-on, a sphere of dark energy ready to detonate. You know, the classic punch-my-punch strategy. He unleashes his soot-burst bombardment right into the monster's weak point. The beast staggers back, its armored fist shattered and smoking from the blast. Ichika screams for him to finish it, and Arata's eyes narrow with deadly focus. He vows to stop being protected, ready to become the weapon they need. Ichika unleashes her final support spell, a massive blue strike enhancement. She screams for him to use this power to cut the beast down for good. Arata turns back with a confident smile, feeling the surge of her magic. His eyes ignite with that familiar crimson glow, his own power answering the call. He becomes a blur of blue and black, charging the ogre with everything he has. Leaping high above the beast, he raises his soot shadow blade for the final blow. All his resolve, all his pain, is channeled into this one single strike. The dark blade cleaves through the ogre's armor, a clean and devastating finish. You know, talk about a critical hit. The monster's head hits the floor as Arata lands, the battle finally won. He stands alone in the silence, bloodied but victorious, the Rift's boss defeated. The system confirms their victory, rewarding Arata with another 2 levels. Ichika rushes to his side, calling out his name with a relieved smile. She gives him a cheerful wave, clearly impressed by their teamwork. She holds up her hand, offering a high five to celebrate their hard-won victory. Arata awkwardly returns the gesture, a rare moment of connection in the chaos. You know, classic post-boss fight bonding. A system alert confirms the rift is cleared and will soon collapse. They race out of the cavern just as the pocket dimension begins to crumble around them. The dark vortex shatters into nothing, leaving only the quiet city street behind. They stand together on the empty street, the battle finally over. He reflects on his failure to find Rio, but finds a small comfort in his newfound strength. The adrenaline fades, leaving only the cold weight of exhaustion in Arata's eyes. Ichika supports him, her voice filled with concern as she takes in the extent of his injuries. A single tear escapes her eye, a silent acknowledgement of the brutal fight he just endured. Without a word, she takes his hand, her grip firm and resolute. She pulls him along, determined to get him somewhere safe before he collapses. Arata resigns himself to his fate, figuring he's earned another trip to a medical room. But their destination isn't a hospital, it's the imposing headquarters of a major guild. He realizes with a jolt they've arrived at the Deep Blue Guild headquarters. You know, his favorite place. She offers him a change of clothes, a small kindness in the heart of enemy territory. Ichika leaves to file her mission report, telling him to wait for her return. Arata sits alone, mulling over the fact that Ichika is filing a report. but his patience wears thin, and he decides to see what's taking so long. He peeks out, recognizing the sterile halls of an association medical facility. Down the corridor, Ichika is walking back, completely unaware she's on a collision course. He steps out just as she rounds the corner, a classic case of bad timing. He catches her just before she falls, a clumsy but effective save. Flustered, Arata quickly assures her that he's all right. Ichika just stares back, a little surprised by the sudden close encounter. You know, personal space is a foreign concept in these hallways. But then Arata's eyes widen as he spots something over her shoulder. His demeanor shifts instantly, grabbing her shoulders as he stares down the hall with cold fury. With a quick apology, Arata shoves past her and bolts down the hall. He knows that was the Deep Blue Guild master, and an interrogation is the last thing he needs. Ichika can only watch, completely baffled by his sudden and panicked exit. The memory of his hand on her shoulder lingers, a moment of shared shock. She's left alone in the hallway, trying to process what just happened. You know, some guys just can't handle a simple conversation. Meanwhile, the woman Arata saw is greeted by another Slayer in a conference room. The woman with the bow welcomes her back, eager to discuss an urgent matter. The green-haired woman senses her distress, asking what's wrong. The other Slayer launches into a furious rant about a man who recklessly endangers his subordinates. She tries to explain the situation, her words confirming the subject of her rage, Takato Goto. The woman with the bow explains the accusation. Takato is monopolizing rifts for personal gain. She can't stomach the idea that someone so corrupt is a member of their guild. The guildmaster promises to handle the situation, her expression hardening with resolve. But her thoughts drift to a more immediate and mysterious problem. Her mind flashes back to Arata, the strange boy she just saw in the hallway. Meanwhile, Arata is back on the streets, hoping his close call with the guildmaster didn't raise any flags. His thoughts are interrupted by a scene of pure chaos, a street engulfed in flames. Two Slayers struggle to shield a terrified child, their defenses on the verge of collapse. Arata grits his teeth, his body tensing for a fight he didn't ask for. A massive, flaming beast unleashes its fury, and Arata prepares to intervene. The Slayer's shield shatters, his voice cracking with despair. But just as their defenses fail, a blast of dark energy slams into the beast. The Slayers can only stare in disbelief at the sudden intervention. A lone figure lands between them and the monster, a whirlwind of dark power. He rises, his body wreathed in an intimidating aura of pure soot and shadow. The terrified Slayer questions what he's seeing, unable to identify the newcomer. Arata ignores them, his crimson eyes fixed solely on the demonic beast. The other Slayer recognizes the power as something completely unknown, an anomaly. But the two-headed flame beast isn't impressed, its gaze locked on the new challenger. With his shadow blade in hand, Arata stands as the last line of defense. The beast's eye narrows, locking onto its new and unexpected target. It lunges forward, a twin-headed inferno of snapping jaws in pure rage. But Arata doesn't flinch, his expression hardening in the fire's intense glow. He meets the attack head-on, his shadow blade clashing with the demonic flames. His eyes burn with a cold fury, a silent promise of annihilation. A wave of pure darkness erupts from him, swallowing the monster's attack whole. The beast dissolves into nothing, leaving only smoldering ash on the pavement. You know, for a guy who uses soot, he's surprisingly good at cleanup. But the fight's end brings a new awareness. He senses he's being watched. From a nearby rooftop, a mysterious figure observes the aftermath with a smirk. The stranger seems intrigued, finding this display of unknown power quite entertaining. The scene shifts to the imposing Japan Slayer Association headquarters. Inside, the nation's most powerful Slayers have gathered for a meeting. It's the Five Heavens Council, led by Gold Slayer Jinosuke Dogami. And among them is a familiar face, the Fire Emperor himself, Leo Kuji. The Deep Blue Guild is represented by Gold Slayer Rei Izaki. Takuto Nagihara of the Suikyu Guild flashes a confident smile. And Shion Inamori of the Kaizen Guild seems less than thrilled to be here. You know, important meetings can be such a drag. The topic of discussion is the recent spike in abnormal demon rifts. Leo reports that even bronze rank rifts are swarming with an unusual number of demons. Rei adds that the bosses are also appearing far stronger than their designated rank. Leo brushes off the concern, suggesting it's just a chance for Slayers to get stronger, but Takuto Nagihara mocks his simple-minded optimism with a condescending smile. The two Gold Slayers sit in a tense silence, their rivalry clear to everyone in the room. Leo fires back, boasting about his guild's kill count, but Takato remains completely unfazed. The argument is completely ignored by the rest of the council, who have more important things to discuss. Reizaki brings the meeting back on track, questioning the cause of the recent surge in rift activity. Jinosuke theorizes that a fundamental change is occurring within the demon world itself. He orders them all to report any unusual activity, no matter how small it may seem. But the meeting isn't over. He moves on to the next item on the agenda. Because there's always more paperwork. And the topic catches everyone's attention, the appearance of a new irregular. Jinosuke confirms they have reports of an unregistered slayer moving between rifts. He speculates that this anomaly might be a sign of change on the human side as well. Reizaki adds that Ichika reported a similar individual with a strange, unknown skill. The mention of a strange skill piques Takato's interest, his mind flashing to Arata. Rei wonders if this power is so unique that the boy feels he can't join a guild. But Takato offers a darker theory with a smug grin. Perhaps he's working with the demons. The accusation hangs in the air, drawing a furious reaction from Leo Kuji. He angrily shuts down the claim, but Takato just seems amused by the outburst. Rei is stunned, realizing Leo has also encountered this mysterious irregular. But Leo remembers the fire in Arata's eyes, insisting the kid is no traitor. Takato just laughs, finding Leo's passionate outburst incredibly amusing. He dismisses his own accusation with a smug, insincere wink. While Leo seethes in his seat, Takato puts on a show of fake remorse. But his eyes reveal the truth. He's enjoying every second of this. Jinosuke clarifies that for now, the capture order is merely a suggestion. Shion Inamori points out they have no real evidence to act on. She questions why they're so fixated on one mysterious individual. The council seems to agree, the tension in the room finally easing. With that, she excuses herself for a very important tea party. Because gold slayers have busy schedules. But her golden eyes suggest there's more to her than meets the eye. Shion Inamori pauses her exit, her gaze drawn to a security camera overhead. She stands before the elevator doors, a silent observer in a world of secrets. Back in the meeting, Jinosuke gives his final command, prepare for the unexpected. He warns that the battles ahead will only grow more intense and dangerous. But Takato Nagihara's mind is already elsewhere, fixated on the irregular. He sees this mysterious slayer as a pawn to increase his own power and influence. Capturing the boy would be killing two birds with one stone. Classic villain logic. He recalls the report from his underling, who identified Arata and his strange new power. He pieces together the intel, soot-based skills, and a connection to a demon corpse. And with a sinister smile, he believes he knows exactly where Arata will appear next. And as if on cue, another one of Arata's enemies decides it's time to act. He's determined to eliminate any dangerous elements before they become a problem. Just then, another demon rift tears open in the middle of the city, sending civilians into a panic. Arata is caught in the chaos, his search for Ryo taking yet another unexpected turn. But his path is suddenly blocked by a horribly familiar face from his past. It's Takato Goto, the man who left him for dead, standing there with a smug grin. He mocks Arata, vowing to drag him to the association for his supposed crimes. The ones Takato himself framed him for. Arata screams at him to stay out of his way, his desperation turning to pure rage. But Takato just smiles, revealing he knows the one secret that can break Arata completely. He twists the knife, asking about his filthy demon brother, and Arata's world freezes. Takato offers to dispose of the problem, his voice dripping with condescension. But the taunt backfires, igniting a furious rage in Arata's eyes. He channels that fury, his dark power swirling around his outstretched hand. Arata unleashes his soot-burst bombardment, a vortex of pure rage aimed at his tormentor. Takato smirks, recognizing the unique soot skill but dismissing it as nothing special. With a casual wave, he unleashes a blast of water magic that completely neutralizes the attack. Arata can only watch in shock as his ultimate move is erased in a single hit. He refuses to back down, leaping forward with his soot shadow blade. Because if the big attack fails, try the smaller one. But Takato effortlessly summons a massive water greatsword, mocking Arata's speed. He unleashes a devastating attack, a massive beast of frost and water lunging for the kill. Arata desperately tries to hold back the torrent of water magic, but the sheer force of the attack is overwhelming, blasting him off his feet. He crashes to the ground, the impact knocking the wind out of him completely. Lying on the pavement, he realizes the attack was brutally fast and heavy. Takato mocks him, calling his unique skills completely meaningless. A real confidence booster. Arata understands now. This is the terrifying power of a Gold Slayer. He questions if there's any way he can possibly win this fight. But Takato's smug expression falters, sensing a shift in the air. Arata races, a new, darker power swirling around him as Takato asks if he's ready to die. His eyes glow with a furious purple light, his rage giving him new strength. Arata unleashes his soot flash release, a tidal wave of darkness rushing toward Takato. The Gold Slayer scoffs, assuming it's just a smokescreen for a cowardly escape. But the dark energy isn't a distraction, it's a direct assault swirling around him. Takato finally understands the attack's nature, summoning a crystalline blade to counter. He boasts that he can easily read such a simple move, unleashing a flurry of ice slashes. But Arata is already airborne, using the dark cloud as cover for a surprise attack. The ice shards tear through the soot, but Arata is already closing the distance. Takato reveals his grand ambition, to become one of the five heavens and control everything. Standard villain monologue. Arata screams that he'll never let a man like him achieve that kind of power. But Takato just sneers, telling him that trash like him belongs on the ground. Takato mocks Arata's dark blade, boasting that his own ice sword is the real deal. But the word "mai" catches Arata's attention, a spark of realization in his eyes. He screams that the power was never Takato's, it came from the orb he stole. He blames Takato for everything, for the loss of his brother and his life. His eyes burn with pure, unadulterated rage as he lets out a furious scream. Fueled by this new fury, he clashes with the Gold Slayer in a storm of power. Takato notes the sudden power spike but dismisses it as a desperate awakening. He effortlessly kicks Arata away, sending him crashing back to the street. The Gold Slayer decides the game is over, preparing to capture Arata for good. Because villains love their paperwork. He unleashes a final, devastating attack, a prison of ice meant to end the fight. Arata realizes he's trapped, the ground freezing solid beneath his feet. With a single word of malice, he sends a storm of ice shards hurtling toward Arata. The attack connects in a blinding flash, engulfing the street in icy destruction. He's left broken on the pavement, the last of his dark power fading away. The Gold Slayer looks down, surprised that such a weak attack was enough to finish him. He gloats that he can finish Arata here and feed the association any story he likes. Because who's going to question a Gold Slayer? But just as he prepares the final blow, his attack is suddenly blocked. Two new figures have arrived, standing between the Gold Slayer and his prey. The newcomers are revealed, two female slayers who clearly aren't impressed. The teal-haired woman calmly informs him that he's causing quite a scene. The guildmaster's voice cuts through the chaos, demanding an explanation for the public brawl. Takato reveals he's been watching her, aware of her connection to the irregular. He tries to justify the beatdown, labeling Arata as a dangerous anomaly. Standard procedure for HR complaints. But she's not buying it, questioning if this is his twisted idea of justice. And just like that, a familiar face is by his side as Ichika promises to heal him. The guildmaster recognizes him, a memory flashing of the boy from the hallway. Ichika unleashes her healing magic, a soothing blue light washing over Arata's wounds. The pain begins to fade as his eyes flutter open, the healing taking effect. He looks up at his former partner, confused but trying to warn her about Takato. But she urges him to stay down, her voice filled with concern for his safety. His mind flashes with images of Takato's smug face and Ryo's transformation. He grits his teeth, his voice a low growl of pure, unyielding hatred. Ichika is completely taken aback, confused by his sudden, furious outburst. She holds him close, trying to make sense of his pained and hateful words. Takato scoffs, asking if they're really planning to harbor an irregular against the association. But the guildmaster calmly points out there's no official capture order for Arata. She declares that she and Ichika will supervise him, telling Takato to stay out of it. He tries to pull rank, reminding her of his Gold Slayer status. Because that's a great way to make friends. He offers a sleazy business proposal, suggesting they use his family's money to grow the guild. Her expression turns to ice as she warns him to back off, lightning crackling around her. Takato walks away, promising she'll one day understand his twisted sense of justice. The guildmaster can only seethe in silence, disgusted by his sheer arrogance. She orders Ichika to get Arata to safety, promising to join them shortly. Arata's eyes flutter open, his mind struggling to place his new surroundings. He wakes up in a medical bed, the pain a sharp reminder of his brutal defeat. But his escape attempt is cut short by a familiar voice asking if he's running again. Ichika stands over him, making it clear she has a lot of questions for him. But her interrogation is cut short by an awkward silence as they wait for the guildmaster. A sudden sense of dread washes over her, and she orders him not to move an inch. Because he's been so cooperative thus far. Arata can only watch her leave, completely baffled by the sudden turn of events. Ichika sprints down the hallway, her mind racing with a sudden panicked thought. But her search is cut short as she runs right into the guildmaster herself. The guildmaster points out the obvious while Ichika insists she followed the signs. Ichika can't help but mutter about how helpless the guildmaster is without her support. The powerful slayer looks away, a little embarrassed by the very public call-out. Ichika wonders how someone so strong can have absolutely no sense of direction. Even elite slayers need GPS. They finally enter the room and the guildmaster is surprised Arata actually waited. Ichika gets straight to the point, demanding to know why he ran and why he fought Takato. The guildmaster watches the interrogation, her expression unreadable and intense. She steps forward, explaining that the association is now watching him as an irregular. She asks the obvious question, why not just register and get the benefits? Arata is silent, unable to give them an answer that won't expose his secret. The guildmaster clarifies that they'll be watching him, but they're not the bad guys here. She presses for an answer, and Arata's grip tightens on the bedsheets. He struggles with the decision, his loyalty to Rio warring with his current predicament. But his choice is clear. He can't risk his brother's safety, no matter who he's talking to. The guildmaster suddenly changes her tune, cheerfully deciding to leave for now. A classic good cop, confused cop routine. Arata is left completely baffled by the abrupt end to the interrogation, but Ichika seems to understand a brilliant idea dawning on her. She briefly worries about Leo's reaction before shrugging it off, leaving Arata in the dark. Instead of a hospital, Ichika's brilliant idea leads them to a bustling city street. Arata sits at a restaurant, convinced he's traded one interrogation for another. Ichika starts by pointing out that he's been fighting nonstop. But it's not an accusation, it's an invitation to rest and eat. The concept of rest is foreign to him, but the sizzling meat is speaking his language. He realizes he hasn't had a real meal in ages, vowing to eat before resuming his search. Ichika tells him not to hold back, since it's all on the guild's tab. The best kind of meal. He feels a wave of guilt, unsure if he's earned this kind of hospitality. But his principles are no match for the sight of perfectly grilled barbecue. His hunger finally takes over, and he gives in to the delicious temptation. With a grateful cry, Arata digs in, the simple pleasure of a good meal overwhelming him. Ichika and the guildmaster watch with warm smiles, enjoying his momentary peace. He savors every bite, admitting he's never tasted anything so refined. Even his powerful companions seem to enjoy the simple pleasure of the meal. But even in this moment of peace, his thoughts drift back to what was stolen from him. He wonders if this is the life he could have had, a normal place within a guild. The guildmaster finally breaks the silence, offering to answer any questions he might have. Ichika points out how rare this opportunity is, a direct line to the guild's leader. She confirms it with a knowing smile. This is a privilege few are ever granted. No pressure. Arata seizes the chance, asking how they find rifts, his mind set on finding Rio. The guildmaster explains their method, comparing rift prediction to forecasting earthquakes. They analyze a storm of data, gravity shifts, past cycles to forecast the chaos. Ichika seems more focused on the guildmaster's unusual comfort around Arata. Suddenly, an alert flashes on the guildmaster's phone, her attention snapping to the screen. It's an emergency warning. A silver rank rift is about to open in the city. The peaceful meal is shattered by the news, Arata realizing there's no time to rest. And it's a dangerous one, with a high chance of even stronger demons appearing. Ichika immediately volunteers, her eyes filled with a familiar battle-ready resolve. But Arata slams his hand down, insisting that he's going with her. The guildmaster agrees, seeing their synergy, but warns them that carelessness is deadly. With renewed determination, Arata slams his hands down, vowing to clear the rift. He knows a silver rank rift is a huge step up, but he trusts in his recent growth. It's no longer a choice. For Rio's sake, he knows he has to do this. They arrive at the predicted location, a quiet street where chaos is about to unfold. The air grows heavy, and Arata can't hide the nervous sweat beating on his face. Just as predicted, a violent purple vortex tears open the sky, a silver rank rift. Ichika checks on him, and he flashes a confident smile, trying to convince them both he's ready. They charge forward without hesitation, the system confirming the start of the Darsa Rift conquest. They step into a world of ancient, crumbling ruins under a sickly yellow sky. Arata is stunned, realizing each rift is its own unique and unpredictable dimension. He mulls over the nature of these dimensions, separate worlds where demons are born. Ichika explains that while most rifts collapse, some are permanent fixtures in the chaos. But just like before, the initial entry is met with an unsettling silence. Her sharp senses kick in first, warning him that something is close. The ground begins to shake violently, and both slayers brace for an ambush. They leap back just as a colossal creature erupts from the sand beneath them. A level 25 sandworm bursts forth, its gaping maw a terrifying sight. But just as quickly as it appeared, the beast dives back into the earth. Ichika watches in frustration as their target vanishes beneath the dunes. She tells him to be still and listen, using her senses to track the monster's vibrations. She confirms their fears. They're not fighting one monster, but several. Arata realizes they've been completely surrounded before the fight even began. But he has an idea, placing his hand on the ground to feel for the enemy. He visualizes his power, hoping the soot can sense the vibrations beneath the sand. His dark power spreads across the desert floor, a makeshift sonar system, and just like that, he gets a lock on an incoming target. His eyes snap open, his new sensory skill pinpointing the sandworm's location. He summons his soot shadow blade ready to strike before the beast can even surface. Ichika is stunned by his new whack-a-mole technique, a skill born from boredom. He recalls his time in the hospital, practicing his control while he was unable to move. He explains that his soot isn't just for fighting, it has countless other applications. Ichika is impressed, realizing he wasn't just resting during his recovery. He puts the theory into practice, a blur of dark energy dismantling the sandworms. With the minions cleared, Arata breathes a sigh of relief, thinking only the boss remains. But Ichika warns him not to let his guard down as they press forward. They look up at the massive structure ahead, a place lost to time. Arata can only wonder what kind of being was once worshipped in this crumbling temple. Her senses flare, warning him of an ominous presence lurking nearby. Suddenly, a massive projectile of dark energy comes crashing down from the sky. It slams into the ground before them, a violent introduction to the rift's true master. Arata braces himself, thinking another sandworm is about to surface. But Ichika knows this is different. The scale of this attack is far greater. Another massive spike of dark energy crashes down, forcing Arata on the defensive. He knows he can't just keep dodging. He needs to counter this new threat. With a decisive swing, his soot shadow blade cuts the attack down. He explains his new tactic, using his soot to sense and strike the enemy underground. Ichika gives him a nod of approval, impressed by his rapid growth. He feels a surge of confidence, knowing he's stronger with her by his side. Arata believes he's finally ready to take on silver rank demons and beyond. You know, famous last words. But their moment of confidence is shattered as they both look up in sudden alarm. The system identifies the rift's boss, a massive level 29 death scorpion. Ichika shouts a plan, telling him to watch for the claws while she handles the tail. She summons a massive seashell shield, meeting the beast's pincer head-on. But the force of the blow is immense, and her defense begins to crack under the strain. Arata knows she can't hold out forever. It's his turn to find an opening. He dodges a crushing blow, the scorpion's pincer slamming into the sand. He slides to a stop, narrowly avoiding the monster's relentless assault. But another attack leaves him trapped with nowhere to go. Suddenly, a platform of pure water materializes right beneath his feet, for that extra vertical advantage. Ichika screams for him to use it, creating the opening he desperately needs. He launches himself into the air, a human missile aimed at the beast's stinger. Arata slams his hand down, detonating the scorpion's venomous tail in a shower of acid. He lands with a quiet sigh of relief as the dust settles on their victory. Ichika congratulates him, standing before the massive, defeated corpse of the scorpion. Arata flashes a tired smile, ready to finally head home after a hard day's work. The giant beast lies motionless, its reign of terror seemingly at an end. But Ichika notices something is wrong. The system hasn't confirmed their victory. Arata realizes the rift isn't collapsing, a sign that this dimension is permanent. The kind of place you don't want to get stuck in. From the shadows, a new figure laments his defeat, his voice dripping with annoyance. The scorpion boss wasn't just a monster, it was a humanoid demon, and he's not happy about losing his tail. The demon casually remarks that while his poison was wasted, he still found the fight entertaining. Arata and Ichika are stunned. A talking demon corpse is something neither of them has ever encountered. He reveals his true power as minion manipulation, a game he finds endlessly amusing. Ichika connects the dots, realizing this new threat was the puppet master all along. He reminds them the claws are still in play, his own fingers glowing with dark energy. The scorpion's remains reanimate, a testament to his belief in not wasting any part of his puppets. You know, a real commitment to recycling. The dismembered beast lunges forward, proving his control extends even to its broken parts. They counter with a combined assault, a storm of soot and water magic. He watches his puppet get destroyed, dismissing it as a useless toy. With his toy broken, he makes them a new offer: become his next puppets. Ichika grits her teeth, completely baffled by this new intelligent type of demon. The demon smirks, announcing he's bored before tearing open a new rift right in front of them. Arata realizes the horrifying truth. This is a rift within a rift, a personal domain for their new enemy. The portal crackles with a sinister energy, feeling far more dangerous than any rift they've faced. With no other choice, they steel themselves to enter the demon's lair, knowing the real fight is just beginning. Arata's expression hardens, his resolve solidifying in the face of this unknown threat. He steps through the portal, entering a world of pure chaotic demonic energy. But on the other side isn't a wasteland. It's a grand, opulent castle hall. You know, because even demons appreciate fine architecture. The puppet master warns them to be careful, suggesting a deeper connection between their worlds. But there's no time for sightseeing as a new, vampiric demon lunges at Arata without warning. Arata reacts instantly, blasting the demon with his soot bombardment. The vampire hits the floor, a smoking hole where its chest used to be. But Ichika warns him of another presence, one that just appeared out of nowhere. At the end of the hall, a grotesque tree-like demon holds court over an army of puppets. They realize they're surrounded by a nest of boss-class monsters all under its control. But Ichika is confident, her magic flaring as she prepares to support Arata's assault. He unleashes his soot shadow blade, now enhanced by her powerful blue charm. But Arata knows they can't keep this up. The horde of puppets is endless. You know, quantity has a quality all its own. Ichika points to their true target, urging him to push past the minions. They break into a desperate sprint, a legion of demons hot on their heels. Arata leads the charge, his voice echoing through the demonic throne room. But a voice from the throne welcomes them, as if he's been expecting guests. It's the puppet master, lounging on his throne like a bored and arrogant king. Arata recognizes the voice instantly. It's the talking demon from the desert. The demon notes their handiwork, but reveals he has plenty of replacements. Ichika forms a plan, suggesting they take out the master to end the horde. But the demon seems thrilled by the challenge, eager to finally play without restraint. He promises to show them true despair, his own power flaring to life. Ichika urges Arata to ignore the taunts, but he questions the demon's twisted motives. You know, because understanding the villain's hobbies is crucial mid-fight. The answer is chillingly simple. He does it because he finds it entertaining. The demon believes all humans are meant to be dominated by a stronger will. He sees it as the privilege of the strong to use others as their puppets. Arata and Ichika stand firm, disgusted by his twisted philosophy. But Arata interrupts, a desperate question forming on his lips. The demon pauses his monologue, intrigued by the boy's sudden defiance. He asks if there's a way to turn a demonized human back to normal. Ichika is stunned, the true weight of his personal quest finally hitting her. The puppet master finds this hilarious, realizing Arata has someone he wants to save. Arata screams for an answer, his desperation boiling over into pure rage. The demon offers a twisted deal. Win his game and he'll share his secrets. You know, a classic fight-me-for-info side quest. The demon summons his next wave of puppets, armored knights glowing with sinister power. But the real threat comes from above, as orbs of blood materialize all around them. The blood projectiles rain down, and Arata knows they're in serious trouble. He counters with a soot bombardment, trying to blast the deadly rain out of the air. But the assault is relentless, forcing him to brace against the storm of attacks. Ichika screams a warning, spotting a new threat closing in on him fast. An armored knight looms over him, its blade poised for a finishing blow. But Arata's eyes are locked on the enemy, his focus absolute even in the face of death. Suddenly, a blast of blue energy intercepts the attack, a perfectly timed save. You know, nothing like having a support with good reflexes. The knight is trapped in a crackling shield, a clear sign that Ichika has his back. Arata watches in horror, realizing the toll this fight is taking on his partner. He screams her name as Ichika pushes her magic to its absolute limit. She insists she's fine, but the strain on her face tells a different story. The puppet master taunts them, asking if Arata has what it takes to finish him. Ichika tells him to go, promising to hold off the horde of armored knights. With a determined roar, Arata accepts the mission, his eyes glowing with power. He charges forward, driven by a single thought: he will not let her get hurt again. Meanwhile, Ichika focuses on herself, her healing magic slowly mending her wounds. Surrounded, she knows she has to clear these minions fast to get back to Arata. Because a support's work is never done. She unleashes a massive wave of blue energy, a desperate all-or-nothing attack. She unleashes her flashwater light dance, a storm of liquid blades. The attack tears through the armored puppets, and she breathes a sigh of relief. But her victory is short-lived as she realizes the horde is truly endless. She steels herself, confident she can hold them off a little longer. Meanwhile, Arata closes in on the puppet master, his dark power ready. The demon analyzes his technique, realizing Arata is using soot to neutralize his blood magic. With a knowing smirk, the demon declares that Arata is from this side. Arata is stunned, demanding to know what he means by that cryptic statement. Because villains love their vague, ominous one-liners. But the puppet master just brushes it off, deciding it's time to end their little game. He issues a final challenge, pitting his blood against Arata's soot. The puppet master unleashes a storm of blood projectiles, a crimson tide of pure malice. But Arata stands his ground, his own dark power crackling in defiance. He counters with a soot bombardment, a vortex of darkness meeting the bloody assault. The demon seems unimpressed, asking if that's the best he can do. He forms a massive spear of blood, daring Arata to stop it with his soot. A classic "my attack is bigger than yours" argument. The two powers collide in a violent explosion that shakes the entire throne room. The puppet master just smirks, clearly enjoying this little power struggle. Arata grits his teeth, struggling to hold his ground against the overwhelming force. The demon praises his reaction time, but taunts him, demanding to see his true power. Arata curses under his breath, realizing he's being worn down by the relentless assault. The puppet master calls his fighting style boring, demanding more of a challenge. His eyes shift to Ichika, deciding to target her to liven things up. Because threatening the support is villainy 101. The taunt works perfectly, and Arata rushes to intercept the new threat. He screams her name, his focus completely broken by the demon's cheap trick. But it was a feint. A spear of blood magic impales him from the side. The force of the blow sends him reeling, blood erupting from his mouth. He crashes to the ground, his mind struggling to process the sudden, devastating attack. The demon feigns surprise, casually stepping toward his fallen opponent. He looms over Arata, scolding him for taking his eyes off the real enemy. But he offers a solution: become his minion, and all this pain will go away. Before he can even react, a second spear of blood pierces him from behind. But Ichika is there in an instant, her seashell shield blocking the next attack. Her eyes burn with a cold fury, her magic flaring to life in defiance. The puppet master scoffs, annoyed that she's interfering with his fun. But her rage is absolute. She vows to make him pay for hurting Arata. She rushes to his side, her healing magic pouring into his grievous wound. She urges him to hold on, promising that he'll be okay. But the demon mocks her efforts, claiming Arata is already beyond saving. He laughs, twisting the knife by praising Arata's noble sacrifice for her. Because nothing says evil like a villain who doubles as a terrible life coach. Ichika's patience finally shatters, her voice a low growl of pure hatred. The demon's words are a poison, claiming Arata's sacrifice was all her fault. Her mind flashes back to a dark alley, to a day she can never forget. She was just a girl then, helpless and surrounded by ravenous demons. Her younger brother was in their grasp, screaming for her to run and save herself. But she was frozen, unable to move as the monster held him tight. She could only reach out, his name dying on her lips as she fell to her knees. The demon's grip tightened, and her world was torn apart in a single brutal moment. The beast's jaws opened wide, a horrifying end to a life just beginning. A real Kodak moment. She was forced to watch the last moments of his terror-filled life. The memory ends with a scream of pure anguish, a name she'll never forget. The memory ends in a brutal flash of red, her brother's life violently extinguished. Her younger self could only watch, tears of horror streaming down her face. But back in the present, Ichika forces herself to calm down, refusing to fall for his taunts. She knows she can't wait for Arata. This is a fight she has to take on herself. She rises to her feet, vowing that she is no longer the helpless girl from that alley. A new resolve hardens her expression as she prepares to counter his blood magic. The puppet master just yawns, bored by her defiance as he launches another attack. because monologuing is hard work. A spear of pure blood magic hurtles directly toward her. But Ichika is ready, summoning her massive seashell shield to intercept the blow. The demon just scoffs, mocking her water magic as it collides with his own. But her water magic erupts, shattering the crimson assault in a flash of blue light. Her eyes are cold and focused, her hand outstretched to control the torrent. The puppet master watches from above as she holds her ground against his power. She declares that her water exists for one reason, to stop others from bleeding. He mocks her, claiming water is a support element, meant only to mix with stronger powers. But her expression hardens. This is the very reason she became a slayer. Her magic begins to dilute his blood, a tactic that catches him completely off guard. The demon is genuinely intrigued, finding her counterattack surprisingly interesting. But he boasts that he can produce more blood than she can possibly handle. Because villains never run out of ammo. Ichika grits her teeth, realizing she's being overwhelmed by sheer volume. But just as she falters, a familiar purple glow returns to Arata's eyes. He struggles to his feet, watching Ichika fight a battle that should have been his. She sends him a sphere of pure water magic, a desperate gambit to turn the tide. She urges him to mix their powers, to use her water to give his soot a new form. He focuses, merging the two elements into a swirling, unstable vortex of energy. The puppet master scoffs, convinced their last-ditch effort is completely meaningless. But Arata's eyes burn with a new resolve, his focus now absolute. He unleashes the combined attack, a torrent of dark water crashing against the crimson tide. The soot-infused liquid acts like a living entity, consuming the demon's blood magic. The puppet master can only watch in shock as his power is not just blocked, but completely devoured. Ichika screams, explaining that water is the ultimate amplifier, able to mix with and strengthen any power. With her magic fueling his, Arata charges forward, unleashing their combined attack. The dark, watery soot slams into the puppet master with devastating force. He reels from the blow, blood erupting from his mouth as the attack connects. But instead of rage, he seems amused, impressed by their unique combination of powers. Arata's eyes glow with a fierce light, his focus unwavering as he presses the advantage. He and Ichika stand side by side, a formidable duo ready for the next round. The demon sneers, questioning their morals and claiming everyone just wants to dominate others. But his monologue is cut short by a sudden vision of another, more powerful demon named Valgado. He decides this fight is no longer his concern, abandoning his post to seek his own amusement. Because evil has a terrible work ethic. Arata questions his morals, but the demon claims he never had any to begin with. Instead, he offers a chilling prophecy. The one Arata saves will become his final enemy. His expression is grim, a final, ominous warning before he makes his exit. The puppet master's form dissolves into a cloud of dark, chaotic energy. He recalls Valgado's words, wondering if the other demon was some kind of prophet. Wounded but amused, he finds this entire turn of events incredibly interesting. But Arata isn't finished. He demands the information he was promised. The demon just laughs, reminding him that the deal was contingent on winning. The fine print is always a killer. Arata's patience shatters, screaming for the way to turn his brother back into a human. The puppet master pauses, repeating the question as if savoring the boy's desperation. With a final manic laugh, the puppet master delivers the devastating answer. He reveals the horrifying truth. Once a human becomes a demon, there's no turning back. He mocks Arata's shattered expression, finding his despair endlessly amusing. And with that, the puppet master vanishes, leaving Arata alone with the crushing reality. A system notification confirms a massive level jump, a hollow victory after that revelation. Ichika calls out his name, her voice filled with concern for the broken boy before her. He remains completely still, lost in his own world as she asks if he's all right. But her attention is drawn to a rare item drop, a crystal left behind by the demon. She insists that he should be the one to use it, a reward for his hard-fought battle. But the skill it grants is minion control, the very power he just fought against. Talk about a cursed item. The system confirms the new skill, the power to revive the dead as mindless puppets. A totally normal and not at all cursed ability. And with the puppet master gone, the system announces the rift is finally closing. The portal collapses, spitting them back out onto the quiet city street. They stand in the aftermath, the chaos of the demon's realm a stark contrast to reality. But the puppet master's final words echo in Arata's mind, a cruel and final judgment. Ichika looks over, her voice filled with concern for the devastating blow he just took. She tries to offer a sliver of hope, suggesting they can find a way together. But Arata's resolve is absolute. He will save his brother no matter what anyone says. They stand in the early morning light, a heavy silence hanging between them. Ichika can only watch, worried by the dark, unwavering fire in his eyes. Back at the Deep Blue Guild headquarters, the day's chaotic events are being processed. The guildmaster mulls over the puppet master's words about Arata's demonic power. She considers the worst-case scenario, capturing him for the association's surveillance. But Ichika slams her hands on the table, refusing to let that happen. She remembers his desperate scream, the raw pain of a boy fighting for his family. She insists that no matter his power's origin, Arata would never hurt innocent people. With fierce conviction, she vows to personally stop him if he ever crosses that line. You know, a totally legally binding promise. The guildmaster listens, her expression softening as she takes in Ichika's plea. After a moment of silence, she finally agrees, much to Ichika's visible relief. For now, she'll let Arata go home, promising to handle the association herself. Ichika beams with genuine relief, her faith in Arata winning the day. Meanwhile, Arata finally makes his way back to the only home he's ever known. He steps inside, greeted by a scene of utter neglect and decay. You know, not exactly a welcome home party. He reflects on how long it's been, knowing his family won't be returning anytime soon. Each step is a heavy reminder of the life that was stolen from him. The small apartment feels vast and empty without the people who once filled it. The puppet master's final words echo in his mind. His brother can never be human again. But even with that crushing weight, his resolve doesn't break. It hardens. He looks around the desolate room, a new determination settling in his gaze. But his train of thought is broken by a single burning question. He remembers a rift, one that appeared right inside their very own house. It tore open reality in the room he once shared with his brother. A horrifying thought takes root. What if Ryo is trapped inside that very rift? He reaches out, a desperate hope that he can somehow find him on the other side. But just as he gets close, a new rift shatters the silence of his apartment. The system announces the conquest of a new demon rift, ominously named Cold. You know, because Warm and Fuzzy was already taken. He's pulled into a swirling vortex, a world of ice and chilling blue light. But instead of fear, he feels a strange sense of nostalgia in this frozen cavern. With no other choice, he decides to press forward into the unknown. He walks deeper into the glowing labyrinth, unsure of what lies ahead. He ventures deeper, but the cavern is eerily silent with no demons in sight. The walls are scarred as if something was thrashing around in a desperate rage. His path is blocked by a massive door, sealed shut by dark, twisted roots. He wonders if the rift's boss is behind it, but the roots won't budge. You know, a classic, you shall not pass situation. With no other option, he summons his soot shadow blade to carve a new entrance. His dark power tears through the barrier in a violent flash of purple light. The door shatters and he steps into the chamber beyond, ready for a fight. But what he sees on the other side stops him cold, his face a mask of horror. Before him stands a hulking, horned demon, and Arata can only whisper his brother's name. But the system identifies the beast not as Ryo, but as the rift's boss, Adele. Arata can only stammer, his mind refusing to process what he's seeing. Tears of relief stream down his face. After all this time, he's finally found him. His mind flashes with memories of Ryo, the brother who was his entire world. He reaches out, pleading with the monster to come home with him. But his only answer is a deafening, inhuman roar of pure rage. The beast swings a massive fist, forcing Arata to dodge the wild attack. It slams its hand into the ground, unleashing a shockwave of demonic power. Arata is thrown back, still trying to reach the brother he knows is trapped inside. You know, because talking it out always works with giant rage monsters. But a sudden realization dawns in his eyes, a horrifying new possibility. The demon's fury intensifies, its body crackling with untamed, violent energy. He leaps onto the beast's back, screaming for his brother to recognize him. He vows that this time he'll be the one to do the saving. But his plea is answered with a brutal backhand, sending him flying across the room. He crashes to the floor, his hope fading as he faces a mindless monster. But then a dark and terrible idea begins to form in his mind. He remembers the cursed skill he gained, the power of minion control. The thought is sickening, to turn his own brother into a mindless puppet. He stands before the raging beast, unable to bring himself to commit such an act. You know, because some lines you just don't cross. but the demon gives him no time to hesitate, charging forward with another attack. Arata is sent reeling once more, his body taking a relentless beating. He lies broken on the floor, his voice a weak whisper for the brother he can't reach. The beast roars, its power a violent storm as it continues its relentless assault. He apologizes for his past failure, accepting this pain as a fraction of what Rio endured. But his apology is met with only mindless fury, a fist crackling with demonic energy. A single tear falls as he watches the monster that was once his entire world. But the attack is cut short as a massive blue crystal erupts from the demon's chest. The beast collapses, and Arata can only stare in shock at the sudden, impossible intervention. A new voice cuts through the silence, mocking Arata for his pathetic attempt at being a hero. He stands over the fallen demon, announcing his arrival with a chilling, arrogant smirk. You know, just the kind of hero you want showing up. Arata can only grit his teeth, his expression a mixture of pure rage and utter disbelief. Arata recognizes the newcomer instantly, the smug gold slayer, Takato. He stands protectively over his brother, warning Takato not to interfere. But Takato just smirks, a flicker of understanding in his cold eyes. He puts the pieces together, realizing the demon's connection to Arata. Arata demands to know why he's here, but Takato claims it's just a slayer's duty. But his true motive is revealed. He's been tracking Arata, thanks to a leak in the guild. A quick flashback confirms it, showing Leo spying on Arata for Takato. The two slayers stand on opposite sides, with a fallen demon between them. Arata's soot power flares to life, ready to defend his brother at any cost. Takato summons his own weapon, ready to execute them both in the name of his twisted justice. You know, as one does. The fight begins without another word, a blur of motion and light. Arata's soot blade meets Takato's ice, a clash of darkness and light. Takato smirks, asking if he can really afford to protect a dead demon. Arata roars back in defiance, screaming that his brother is not a corpse. The Gold Slayer simply forms another crystal, ready to finish the job. He launches it not at Arata, but at the fallen body of his brother. Arata's focus is split, his desperation growing with each of Takato's taunts. He finally snaps, charging forward with a vow to end this right now. But Takato effortlessly parries the attack, dismissing him as a bottom feeder. You know, because classism is alive and well in the Slayer world, the Gold Slayer's eyes gleam with malice, promising to destroy them both. Arata lunges forward, his dark power clashing against Takato's icy defense. He stands his ground, screaming that the monster behind him is not just a corpse. Memories of a happier time flood his mind, of a brother who was his biggest fan. He made a promise back then, a vow to protect his family no matter the cost. And this time, he screams to the heavens, he will not fail. The memory of that simple, unbreakable bond fuels his rage. His soot blade meets Takato's crystal sword in a shower of violent sparks. For the first time, the Gold Slayer seems genuinely surprised by Arata's strength. But Arata's power is surging, fueled by a desperation that borders on demonic. Takato mocks their shared habit of resisting, vowing to end their filthy family line. You know, just your average hero. Arata demands to know what the Gold Slayer means by both of you. Takato just smirks, revealing he's already dealt with 2 other lowly demon corpses. Arata's mind flashes back to his empty home, to the parents he thought were just away. Takato explains they foolishly tried to blackmail him over the orb he bought. The horrifying truth dawns on Arata as Takato admits he disposed of them. He even laughs, complaining that killing them didn't grant him any experience points. You know, because priorities. Arata's power explodes, his voice a low growl promising to erase Takato from existence. But the Gold Slayer is thrilled by the challenge, promising not to hold back this time. He unleashes his Ice Beast Fang, a torrent of frozen monsters hurtling toward Arata. Arata meets the attack head-on, his dark blade carving a path through the icy assault. The icy beasts are a relentless, snarling tide of pure magic. He unleashes his own power, trying to blast them out of the air. But he's completely surrounded, forced to dodge the frozen onslaught. He curses his own speed, unable to destroy them as fast as they appear. Takato just smirks, admitting Arata has improved but still isn't a threat. He knows his body can't keep up with this relentless assault forever. You know, stamina bars are a real thing. He's being pushed back, the fear of failing his family once more creeping in. But a voice from behind them cuts through the chaos. His brother is awake. And he's not happy, grabbing the Gold Slayer with monstrous strength. Takato is sent flying, caught completely off guard by the sudden intervention. Arata watches in disbelief, wondering if his brother can still recognize an enemy. The beast that was once Rio stands before Takato, its rage now fully focused. The Gold Slayer is stunned, questioning how a mindless demon could protect a human. But he quickly dismisses it, vowing to eliminate them both in one fell swoop. Because nuance is for lesser slayers. Arata knows he needs a new strategy, a way to stop Takato's movements. A new idea forms. What if he can change the very state of his own power? He recalls his fight alongside Ichika, how their powers merged into something new. Takato scoffs at the spreading darkness, assuming it's just another cheap smokescreen. But the soot on the ground begins to shift, turning into a thick, dark liquid. The Gold Slayer is caught completely off guard as the tar-like soot traps his feet. Arata lets out a triumphant roar. His desperate gambit actually worked. But Takato scoffs, enraged that a bottom feeder's trick could restrain him. With a burst of power, he shatters the trap and leaps into the air. But his victory is cut short as a massive shadow looms right behind him. Ryo's demon form brings both fists down, crushing the Gold Slayer with monstrous force. Arata's face breaks into a smile, his heart swelling with pride for his brother. In that one moment he believes they've actually won, that this nightmare is finally over. Famous last words. But the demon's pained roar shatters the illusion of their victory. Arata's hope instantly turns to dread, his triumphant smile vanishing. From below, massive ice spikes erupt, impaling Ryo's body in a brutal counterattack. Arata can only watch in horror as his brother's blood splatters across his face. A memory of Ryo's voice echoes in his mind, a desperate cry for his big brother. He lets out a scream of pure, unadulterated rage and denial. His hatred manifests, a torrent of dark energy fueled by his despair. But it's too late. His brother's form dissolves into nothingness. The system confirms the rift's original boss has been cleared and is now gone. Arata is left kneeling in the empty room, completely and utterly broken. Takato mocks him, asking if he really thought a few new tricks would change anything. A real masterclass in kicking a guy when he's down. But beneath the despair, a new promise forms, a vow whispered with pure malice. He struggles to his feet, his only thought now a promise to kill the man before him. His power erupts, a colossal shadow of pure hatred dwarfing the Gold Slayer. Tears of rage stream down his face, his glowing eyes locked on his one true target. He lunges forward, a blur of dark energy driven by a single murderous thought. Takato senses the shift in power, wondering if this is another one of Arata's tricks. But he scoffs, forming a new ice blade, convinced that trash is still trash. Famous last words, part 2? The two powers collide, a violent explosion of ice and shadow shaking the cavern. For the first time, Takato's smug expression falters into genuine disbelief. Tendrils of dark soot begin to coil around him, a trap born from pure rage. Arata's eyes burn with malice as he presses his sudden, overwhelming advantage. He unleashes a final, devastating blast that engulfs the Gold Slayer completely. The Gold Slayer is trapped, completely swallowed by a vortex of pure hatred. He crashes to the ground, utterly bewildered by this sudden surge of power. A sudden vision flashes. Takato lies defeated on a cold city street, and Arata stands transformed, a masked figure vowing to kill him endlessly. Back in the present, the nightmare continues as dark tendrils close in on Takato. He feels a primal fear, a chill that has nothing to do with his own ice magic. But the Gold Slayer's pride is a stubborn thing, refusing to admit defeat. He unleashes his strongest attack, a final, desperate gambit called the Ice Emperor. He throws up a shield, but Arata's rage manifests as a storm of dark projectiles. Because revenge is a dish best served pointy. With a final, guttural scream, Arata's power shatters the last of his defenses. Takato lies defeated on the cold pavement, pinned by shadows of pure malice. Arata stands over him, a silent, glowing specter of vengeance. A cruel smile spreads across his face as he asks if the fight is already over. The Gold Slayer's pride shatters, his only thought now a desperate need to escape. But Arata's glowing eyes promise there will be no retreat. He unleashes another wave of pure, destructive energy. The blast tears up the ground, a warning shot for the man crawling away. Takato looks back in horror at the monster Arata has become. Maybe don't murder a guy's entire family. Just a thought. A single guttural command echoes from the darkness. Die. He lunges forward, a blade of pure hatred aimed to finish this once and for all. But his killing blow is intercepted by a familiar blue shield. Ichika stands in his way, screaming his name to break the spell of his rage. Her water magic strains against the overwhelming force of his darkness. She realizes with horror that his power is still growing, spiraling out of control. But her defense shatters, and the raw force of his hatred slams into her. She's thrown back, a painful price for standing in the way of his vengeance. She can only stare in shock, wondering what kind of monster he's become. But she gets to her feet, vowing she won't let him cross the line into murder, just like she promised the guildmaster. She pleads with him to come back to fight the darkness consuming him. Her voice seems to reach him as Arata clutches his head in a silent internal war. Ichika knows the scale of this destruction will attract the association's attention, but she blames them for this mess, vowing to hold them accountable later. Takato just smirks from the ground, taunting that she's finished as well. She ignores him, her focus entirely on finding a way to stop Arata. But Arata is lost in his own battle, fighting the darkness that's consuming him. His control finally shatters, unleashing a cataclysmic wave of pure, chaotic power. Back at the guildmaster watches in horror as the city burns. She realizes this is the worst-case scenario, regretting her leniency. Hindsight is 20/20. With no other choice, she heads for the National Security Intelligence Alliance. The situation has escalated far beyond a simple guild matter, becoming a national threat. Meanwhile, a man in a high-tech office discusses the association's negligence. But he finds the chaos interesting, deciding to go have some fun himself. Back on the streets, the city is torn apart by a massive explosion. Arata, completely lost to his rage, unleashes a sphere of pure, destructive hatred. The attack tears through the pavement, a vortex of darkness aimed at Ichika. She stands her ground, unable to dodge the overwhelming power hurtling toward her. Bruised and bloodied, she braces for the impact, refusing to back down. But a flash of blue light intercepts the attack, a last-second, powerful save. Ichika looks up with a relieved smile, realizing she's not alone anymore. A new slayer arrives asking if Ichika can still fight. Because backup always arrives fashionably late. The guildmaster arrives, apologizing to a wounded Ichika for letting the situation escalate. She takes full responsibility, admitting her judgment was flawed and she should have intervened sooner. Her gaze hardens as she looks toward the source of the citywide destruction. She sees Arata, now a monster completely consumed by an unstoppable dark power. She recalls their past encounters, struggling to reconcile the boy she knew with this beast. Her eyes narrow with a new grim determination to fix her mistake. But her attention is stolen by a flash of brilliant green energy cutting through the chaos. A new figure appears, commenting that the irregular is finally showing his true nature. Because every crisis needs a smug observer. The guildmaster stands her ground, vowing that her guild will take responsibility for Arata. But the man just smirks, announcing the association has a very different opinion on the matter.